Oh my gosh, what a day. Hi everybody, this is KillRed40 and I'm here to talk about Wattam. The only thing I really knew about this game going into it was that it was developed by the guy that brought us Katamari Damacy. I don't quite know how to say it. But I knew that he was involved in this game, and that made me really excited because I really like the Katamari games. I didn't know what to expect, however, because if you have played Katamari, you should know that this guy is really different, really strange stuff. He makes some pretty weird things that I don't quite know how to interpret all the time. Wattam really impressed me in this way because I felt like he communicated a lot of different things with this game, and I'm really excited to talk about it. First things first though, when you get your hands on the controller, what does this game feel like? It's kind of hard to describe because I've actually never played a game like this before. Essentially, you get a bunch of different characters that are based off of different inanimate objects or even living things like trees, and they each have a personification. All of them have faces, all of them can cry, all of them can laugh, and you switch between these characters and use their different abilities to further progress the story along. I would say that Wattam is somewhat of a story-driven game, even though it's a very simple story, but it's all based off of that. You just get different little objectives, kind of puzzly type things, and you have to figure out how to get to the next stage. Some examples of these objectives is making everybody happy by blowing them up using the mayor's special ability. Or trying to become as tall as a bowling pin by stacking a bunch of different characters up on top of each other. The objectives change drastically just depending on what part of the game you're in. The controls are really different compared to most games that I've played recently. I mean, you still use the left stick to move around, but the right stick isn't used for the camera. It's actually to switch your characters, which I thought was a pretty interesting and different idea for controls. L2 and R2 are used to rotate the camera, and this was really different. I'm just not used to this. I liked it after a while, but it took a while to get used to. Sometimes the camera would kind of freak out and do its own thing, and there were a couple times that were kind of bad when there were frame rate dips just because of the sheer amount of characters on screen. None of this really hurt the experience for me that bad. This game is just so charming and just really positive, and I loved a lot of it. I loved the themes, I loved the characters, I love the sound effects. I just think that this game is a nice place to hang out in when you're having a bad day. I really enjoyed it, and the adventure was a lot of fun too. The game starts off by putting you in the shoes of a cube personified to be a mayor. He's really lonely and sad, and this opening is just so adorable that I can't get over it. It's just dark and there's a little spotlight that's over him, and he's really sad, and he's talking about how he misses everybody, but he doesn't know where anyone went. Before the game starts, we're actually greeted with a cutscene that explains that some kind of catastrophe happened on planet Earth, and nobody knows what it was, but after this catastrophe, nothing exists anymore. That's what your job is to find everybody and to create Earth again. In the mayor's sorrow, he decides to kind of wander around his little island that he has above the clouds, and he finds a little rock that happens to jump up and greets the mayor, and this makes the mayor incredibly excited. This is where our adventure really begins, and you start to get introduced to a bunch of different characters. A couple examples include a giant tree that eats people and turns them into fruit, or another example is a mouth that also eats people and makes them into poop. I mean, it's just a bunch of different little goofy things that these different characters can do, and they all need to work together to complete these objectives so that you can find more of the people that used to live on this planet. This first level does a great job of explaining the mechanics mechanics and teaching you how to play the game. I also like how it just keeps you busy and the story just keeps progressing on, and each objective is very different from the last one. One of my favorite objectives has to do with a telephone and the sun. The son decides to take the telephone's telephone and make a call without him knowing. This causes the telephone to become upset and start crying, and in order for you to get back at the phone, you have to ride on a balloon up to the sun. It's really cinematic, it's really fun, it's really cute, and it's just something that you have to experience to understand why it's so great. Now, before I get into the second level, I have to give out a spoiler warning. The other thing is, would I recommend this game at $20? I'm actually not quite sure. I really enjoyed it, I loved it a lot, but I could see this game not being for everybody. There is no technical failure state, so there is a debate to be had if this is actually a real game or not. I also would say that it's just really different and really weird. Keep on watching through the spoilers if you're not sure if this game is for you, or maybe just do a little bit more research. Personally, I really loved it though. So let's get into level 2. The second level takes place on a platform that is entitled Summer. You can tell that it's a little bit different on this platform. The mayor goes there and eventually goes into a mysterious cave. Now inside of this mysterious cave is a scroll, and this scroll tells you that something destroyed the earth and has made it so that everybody is divided, and that's all it really tells you, which we kind of already knew. And if I was to critique the game, that would be it, is that we already knew this information, so I'm not quite sure why the game decides to tell you now again, but it's not that big of a deal. After you exit the cave, you meet another mayor that is now talking in Russian. So the first mayor is in English, the second mayor is in Russian, and they have to kind of figure out how to become friends. The way you do this is you use your little bomb special, and it just makes everybody happy, so you just know that you like each other, I guess. And the logic of Wattam, it works. I think it's great still. That's pretty much it for level 2. There's not a whole lot there when it comes to gameplay. I think it's still an okay level. It's probably my least favorite in the whole game. Third level opens up as Autumn. I really enjoyed Autumn. This one had a lot of cool things in it. At one point, the mayor becomes a detective to help a sushi roll find its kids, and I thought that this was really goofy. You have to run around all of the previous levels in order to find these kids. It's really simple gameplay, but somehow Wattam just keeps making it feel fresh by giving us these new scenarios and just a little bit more to it. After all of this drama with the sushi roll, you find a book that tells you a little bit more about the backstory of this planet and what happened. Mainly that the Earth tried to fight back against this catastrophe. It did everything it possibly could. I really liked this part because it kept that mystery going, and I just kept wondering, where is this narrative going? I don't know where it's going. For some reason, I kept feeling like it was going to be some kind of environmental message, but it had that mystery to it that made me keep playing. This scene also included this really interesting dialogue of the book talking about how he wishes that people could enjoy the things that they had before it was taken away. And this made me kind of reflect on my own life, and I really liked it. It was a little bit depressing for this type of game, but I think that this little tiny bit of bitterness worked really well for the sugary sweetness of the rest of the game. After this part, you are greeted with this big pumpkin that is kind of the personification of Halloween. It happens to have this giant doll on it that's kind of creepy but still manages to somehow be cute, and you have to get its face on there. This part has some very mild combat mechanics that I thought worked okay. They weren't my favorite thing in the world, and this is probably the closest thing that the game gets to being annoying, because while you're trying to get the eyes and the nose and the mouth on it, it gives you this time limit. It was kind of frustrating sometimes climbing up this doll and failing. Sometimes the mechanics didn't work as well as it probably should have. Mix that with kind of the skipping frame rate that is causing all sorts of issues, and it can be a little bit annoying. Wattam is not a perfect game by any means, but I do think that it's interesting enough for this part to exist. I'm still happy that this part was there because it switched up the gameplay enough and added a tiny bit of challenge so that it kept my attention. After this encounter with the doll, you were then greeted with winter, and you go to the next level and you find a phone, which then tells you a little bit more about the backstory once again. It tells you that in the Earth's struggle to survive, it eventually just decided to destroy itself. so that it could save its children, which is your characters. And that's kind of all we learn about this part. I really liked this part, and something that I thought was interesting is that the technology just kept getting better as you progress throughout the story. So you saw the scroll, you saw a book, and now you see a modern telephone on the game giving you these little tidbits of information. Not quite sure what that's trying to say, but I did think it was interesting. Another thing about this part is that the characters are speaking another language again. Wattam seems to be very interested and almost obsessed with different types of things, different types of languages, different types of objects, different types of cultures, and I think it's really interesting. I love how these cultures all just kind of intermingle within this game, but it's even more nuanced than that, because a lot of the struggle in this game comes from the characters either taking away something from another character or just going against the motives of a different one. And I thought that was really interesting, and just as a theme, I thought that it dealt with it very maturely. After this conversation with the phone, you find an X that is another one of the mayors, and he also speaks a different language. But he then admits to you that he is the father of all of the mayors, and I thought this was really cool, meaning that everybody on this planet is essentially family, and everybody's wondering where the mother is, which happens to just be Earth. This is where I was starting to get really worried. I was worried that we were going to get some kind of political message crammed down our throats, and then the game decided to take a left turn. The moon is the villain of this story, and I thought that was crazy. The moon comes down to you and asks for its forgiveness because it was greedy and it felt like it wasn't as good as the Earth, or it felt a bunch of envy towards it. And I really liked this part because I am so used to media now pushing some kind of political message into my entertainment, where you could argue that this is political, but I saw it more as a personal lesson than a political one. The moon talks about how it was greedy and how it wishes that it hadn't been that way because it misses the camaraderie that they used to have. And this is where the game decides to give you a bunch of different decisions. Usually in games, it's a decision of yes or no. Should you forgive this moon or should you not? In this, it gives you 4 decisions, each being really positive, surprisingly. The most negative one that you see is acknowledging that the moon made a mistake, but you are ultimately grateful for the adventure that it led into. Eventually, everybody decides to just hold hands and do this circle dance to summon the Earth back to its former glory, and the moon joins in. And I thought that this was really cool. I really liked it. It just made me feel good. There were a lot of times in this game when I felt like, I'm a grown man, should I actually be enjoying this? And you know what? I'm happy that I did. I'm happy that I played this. I don't care how childish it is. It made me feel better. There is so much negativity right now, and this game reminded me that there is always something positive to look for. It showed me that no matter what the problem is, whatever is hurting us right now, we can overcome it. And I really liked that message, and we don't see that kind of positivity in things anymore. Most of the time, things end up attacking one group of people or another. Wattam does none of that, and it just tells us to be grateful and to be happy for what we have and to remain humble. And I thought that this was incredibly wholesome, and I loved it. I really enjoyed just thinking about Wattam as I played it. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still wondering what exactly all this has to mean. If I was to take a guess, it's talking about how everything has a place, no matter how different it is. Everything has a place, everything has a reason for existing, and that we need to be thankful for what we have. And I'm thankful that I played Wattam. And really, that's the best praise I can give this game, is that it just made me feel better in a time of turmoil. I think that if anybody is having a bad day or having problems lately, maybe consider giving this game a look. Try and play it. It is very childish, and there are times when I thought that the crying or the laughing of like the children's voices on the characters got a little annoying. But other than that, I thought that it was fantastic, and it has a lot of just golden messages in it that I think are timeless. If you think this looks like a good game, check it out. If not, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of this. Anyways, this is KilledRed40 signing out.